Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation, charged with murder. Charlie Kirk's accused killer going before a judge for the first time moments ago. The messages he sent confessing to the crime. As prosecutors say, they are seeking the death penalty. Another accused killer with a different outcome in court today. Did you see this? Why did a judge drop a charge against Luigi Mangione? Ashley Banfield with us tonight here on The Hill. Also this evening, across the pond, President Trump arriving in the United Kingdom for a state visit with the king. What he told reporters as he left for abroad. Plus, the cash clash. Why the FBI director and several Democratic senators today had several moments like this.
I follow you on your social media posts that tear this country apart.
To address your falsehoods.
Oh, you can try all you want
in this country.
to not take responsibility for what you have said.
Time.
Sir, you're making a mockery of this
over.
committee. Sir, you don't tell me my time is over.
And that went on and on. We'll explain later tonight. But first tonight here on The Hill, a confession on text and an appearance before a judge. The 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, officially charged in the shooting death of Charlie Kirk, appearing virtually, looking stoic, no emotion, seemingly no remorse. The judge telling Robinson he could face the death penalty.
The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty.
Robinson charged on 7 different counts, among them aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, count 3 and 4, obstruction of justice, several other charges as well. We begin tonight with our Alex Capriello joining us live once again from Utah with the very latest. Alex, this was the first time that we saw Tyler Robinson. He appeared remotely, not in person. Didn't really say anything, just looked straight ahead.
Yeah, and that's what we were expecting for this first appearance. He was appearing from his jail cell here in Utah County. As you rightly pointed out, not much emotion being shown from him. However, it was mostly a listening session for him as the judge laid out the charges in front of him and that have been officially filed here, wearing that cutoff tank top and, interestingly, that body vest as well. The biggest takeaway for me, Blake, was now we have a better idea of potentially a motive behind this attack. So if Tyler Robinson is guilty of the crimes that he's accused of, well, then authorities say that he was motivated really by hatred and anger towards Charlie Kirk and the political views that he expressed most often at those Turning Point USA events. We know this based on a series of conversations as well as text messages that were laid out between Tyler Robinson as well as his roommate, and now we are also learning transgender partner. In one of those, he appears to confess to that person, writing, "To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. Sorry to involve you." And then asked, why did he do it? Robinson is alleged to have replied, "I had enough of his hatred," him being Charlie Kirk, "and some hate can't be negotiated." Of course, investigators have also gathered physical evidence at the scene that they shared with us today that includes DNA on that rifle, on that rifle's trigger, on the towel that the rifle was wrapped around, as well as 1 spent shell casing and 3 unspent shell casings as well. Prosecution at this point saying they are planning on pursuing the death penalty. Like,
and Alex, next hearing at the end of this month, right?
Yep, September 29th, 10 a.m. Right now, Robinson has not had any sort of defense counsel appointed to him, so that will happen between now and then. It's my understanding here in the state of Utah, a grand jury indictment is not necessary, so I expect this next hearing to have more evidence unveiled to the judge, so that way the judge can determine that it is sufficient enough to go to trial.
Alex Capriello, live for us tonight in Utah. Alex, thank you. Joining us now, the Republican Congresswoman from the state of Utah, Celeste Malloy. Her district includes Washington County, of course, where the suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination was from and was picked up by law enforcement. Congresswoman, I believe it's your first time on the show. I thank you for being with us tonight. Sorry it's under these circumstances. You have been out talking about the need for dialogue. Of course, your community is I don't want to say squarely involved with this, but this is where Tyler Robinson is from. And I just wonder, I know you join us from Washington tonight as Congress is doing its business. But I just wonder how the folks back home are handling all this a week later.
The folks back home are having to sort through a lot of complicated feelings, as you would imagine. We keep saying that we don't expect things like this to happen in Utah, and I know that might sound a little naive, but we don't expect things like this to happen in Utah. In Utah Valley, we call it Happy Valley. It's got two big universities, and we think of it as a safe place for students to gather. And Washington County is where I was a deputy county attorney. I know those people. Those are my friends and neighbors, and we don't expect things like this to come out of Washington County either. And so I want to be clear, this isn't a question of whether the community is guilty or whether the community produced a murderer. One person pulled that trigger. This is a choice that a person made, and it's a poignantly ironic choice that he said there's too much hate and decided to solve that by shooting somebody and murdering him in front of a large crowd of college students.
We've heard time and again now several times about pursuing the death penalty for Tyler Robinson. We heard it today from prosecutors there. It was read to Tyler Robinson, the potential in court as well. Is that the way that the prosecution should go in your view?
I trust the prosecutors in this case to know what's right. They have a really high-profile, complicated case in front of them. What unites us as Americans is our Constitution, which we're celebrating tomorrow. And the things that we hold dear, like the right to peaceably assemble and the right to free speech, were the very things that this violated. It violated what makes us Americans. And so immediately after the news broke, people started asking me if Utah had the death penalty. I think the reason this hits such a raw nerve for so many people is not just that it's on television and we all saw it and we all felt like we knew Charlie Kirk, but that we as Americans hold sacred the ability to go out in public places and talk about what we believe, to go to public gatherings and feel like we're safe. And this violated both of those things, and it really is causing ripple effects. It's getting a lot of international attention, I think, for those very reasons.
You've talked about the need, Congresswoman, for a real-world dialogue, as you put it. We heard today from someone on the other side of the political aisle, as yourself, Governor Josh Shapiro, of course, the governor's mansion in his governor's mansion, where he resides, was targeted earlier this year. He made a speech today. Here's part of what he said. I want to get your reaction on the other side.
I believe we have a responsibility to be clear and unequivocal in calling out all forms of political violence. Unfortunately, some, from the dark corners of the internet all the way to the Oval Office, want to cherry pick which instances of political violence they want to condemn.
What would you say to the governor tonight?
I would say that he started off making a great point and then undermined his own point by deciding who he was going to leave out of that conversation. So I think we should condemn all forms of political violence, full stop. And some of this whataboutism, and maybe your side didn't handle it as well as our side, and maybe some people have been targeted and you didn't care as much, is kind of beside the point right now. What happened in Utah was wrong. And Americans should be able to gather in public places and have political dialogue. We need people to be able to get off the internet and talk to each other in person. And that is the conversation we should be having. Not, yes, that's true, but, or I condemn political violence, but. There should be no but. We condemn political violence. As Americans, we have to hold the line on the things that do unite us, which is we believe in freedom of speech and our right to be out in public expressing our opinions and not be afraid of being hurt or being shot. There were thousands of college students there that day that I worry will now pull back and not want to be out in the public square talking about their political opinions. And even if their opinions are wrong and I disagree with them, I will always defend their right to be able to go have those conversations in person without fear of violence or death.
Congresswoman Celeste Malloy represents parts of Utah. I hope you come on back under much better circumstances another time. Congresswoman, appreciate the perspective. Thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you. With me now, Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor, and Bill McGinley, former cabinet secretary in the first Trump administration. Two, I think it's fair to say, power attorneys in this town. Scott, Bill, thanks for being with us tonight.
If you say so.
Bill, we saw Tyler Robinson in court today. He hasn't been cooperative and doesn't have an attorney, it appears, at this point in time. How's that possible?
Look, I think that Utah's got its own criminal procedure and rules out there, and I think that they took steps today to make sure that he does get counsel for the next hearing on the 29th. But I also, the interesting point that you raised, that he's not cooperating, but the investigation continues. You've got the chat rooms that he was participating in. There may be indications that some people had some foreknowledge of what was going to happen. I think both federal and state investigators are going to run that to the ground, and we're going to see if there were others who knew what was going to happen or possibly assisted.
So where does the investigation go from here? Because essentially, Scott, there is a confession right there in the messages.
Yeah, those chat rooms and the people he communicated with by messaging, including his roommate, all of those individuals are going to be investigated, and to see whether there were any co-conspirators, any bad actors. Did anyone help him after this took place? They've got the admission. And in regard to today was the presentation of charges, if you will. He was not formally arraigned, if you will. They'll have a lawyer to be formally arraigned and enter either a guilty plea or not guilty plea, and that will come on the 29th, or they may do that and then have what they call a preliminary hearing, whereby you don't have the grand jury indictment under Utah law. They present enough evidence to the judge to say you're legally sufficient to move forward with these 7 or 8 charges and stuff.
Okay. Scott, Bill, catch you later in the show. Appreciate it. Still to come tonight. Here on the Hill, Luigi Mangione. Big developments today in that case. This was him walking into a courtroom. Of course, he's charged with allegedly killing the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. Ashley Banfield, live with us tonight here on the Hill, other side of the break. Why a certain charge was dropped. Plus, President Trump just landing in the UK a little while ago. We are live with what to expect as the president meets with the royals. Plus this.
It is my time to address your falsehoods. You are an embarrassment to the division in this country. It is my time. You had your time.
I'm not sure anybody heard what anyone had to say there, but there was a lot of that as Kash Patel took to the Hill today. We'll show you what Democrats said when he was in the chair and what some Republicans are saying about Pam Bondi. I'm Blake Berman. See you on the other side of the break. Ashley Banfield joining me in 4 minutes. Back here to the Hill on NewsNation, the alleged CEO killer Luigi Mangione in court today. The 27-year-old, as you see here, walking in handcuffed, shackled for his first appearance in a New York City courtroom since February. A judge there dismissing state terrorism charges against Mangione, saying there was insufficient evidence that Mangione intended to intimidate the entire population. Now, Mangione had a target of 1, as you know, the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The execution-style murder meant to draw attention to the, as some see it, greed in the insurance industry. The terms denied, depose, defend, written on the bullets that were recovered at the scene. Mangione's supporters celebrating after that charge was dropped today outside the courtroom.
The terrorism charge is dropped! They dropped the terrorism charge!
That's just some of it. The Ivy Leaguer amassing a cult following since his alleged assassination last December. Many of his supporters covering their faces with masks, holding signs reading "Free Luigi" and "Murder for profit is terrorism." Mangione still faces 25 years to life for second-degree murder. He'll be back in court on December 1st. He also faces several federal charges that carry a possible death penalty. Look who is here with me now, Ashley Banfield, host of Banfield, weeknights here, 10 p.m. Eastern. Ashley, so great to see you. Thanks for being with us tonight. I want to get to Mangione in a second, but of course we were all just watching Tyler Robinson last hour, first court appearance, and there is something that stood out to you specifically. Tell me.
Yeah, I'm always looking for what people are wearing. Isn't that funny? But it matters when you make a public appearance as a high-profile defendant, whether you're wearing jailhouse orange scrubs, whether you're wearing this kind of a getup, or whether you're wearing a suit that's brought in by your lawyers because you don't want to prejudice the jury pool. And the reason the jury pool would be prejudiced is because everybody's looking at this. When I looked at this shot, I was not expecting to see him in what I think is a suicide vest. And why does it matter that he's wearing a suicide vest? I think it plays into what will likely be a diminished capacity effort based on whatever attorney he ends up having on record to say, look, you can't go after the death penalty for my client because he's crazy. Insane? Not a chance. He's never going to get an insanity defense mounted because he ran and said to his partner and love interest and roommate, I'm sorry, I was keeping it a secret. That means you know right from wrong. But this suicide vest, if it is what I think it is, and it does appear to be a suicide vest, means he's obviously very troubled, and they think he's a danger to himself that will mount itself into its case in some way, I guarantee.
What'd you make of him being essentially just emotionless there?
I don't expect anything less. There wasn't much asked of him. And I'm sure that if he has anybody advising him at this point, they would have just said, don't do anything. Don't be a hero. Don't try to make some sign to your followers. And by the way, Blake, I fully expect that this guy is going to have the same kind of following, not maybe as many or maybe as much money raised as Luigi Mangione, but I fully expect there will be those culture warriors who will jump on his bandwagon and say, free Tyler. And may I say for the record, before anybody throws peanuts at the screen, I say two things definitively at all times. Factually, definitively, murder is bad, puppies are cute. You can't argue either one. I don't care what your opinions. But those two things are real. Murder is bad. For anybody who thinks but belongs after the sentence, they don't belong in the conversation.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Luigi Mangione, because there was this terrorism charge, the state terrorism charge that was dropped, and you saw the celebrations afterward, which, my goodness, Ashley. The judge there basically says the charges were legally insufficient. Alvin Bragg had been making the argument, that it was frightening, well-planned, targeted murder that was intended to cause shock and detention and intimidation, and thus the charge. What do you make of the judge's decision there today in the state of New York?
I've been trying to make sense of it because I actually thought, with my little pea brain, that it was a natural. I really do believe he was trying to affect cultural change. And terrorism is not just about political leadership, it's also about the public and the citizenry. And I do think that it had a profound effect on a lot of healthcare CEOs and how they go about their business, maybe how they go about their personal security, but also their business, which would be the effect of terrorism. However, as I read deeper into it, it is a little used statute in the state of New York, and it rarely prevails. I think what this judge looked at, to try to get narrow on you here, is that Luigi's manifesto, when I was reading the omnibus motion that was provided by the DA, and it is really interesting, Luigi's writings talk a lot about this guy and what a great target this guy is. Not so much, if I get this guy, the others will all follow suit and we will all be the beneficiaries of it. It wasn't so much a revolutionary's call, even though he sort of fashioned himself a revolutionary in the writings, as it was a Ted Kaczynski call, which, by the way, he, in his own writings, refuted. Ted Kaczynski's a terrorist, and I would never do what Ted Kaczynski does. Not to say that we should all take Luigi Mangione's word as the reason the judge made his reasoning, but it did come into play.
Interesting. Ashley Banfield, nice to have you here on the Hill. Thanks for being with us tonight. Appreciate it.
I don't do many politics shows. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm all true crime, my friend.
I wonder if Ashley could join us. And they said yes. And I was like, that's awesome. That's amazing. Ashley, thank you so much.
Because of Blake Berman. It's because of Blake Berman. That's the reason. Good to see you.
Hope you watch Banfield tonight, 10 Eastern, right here on NewsNation. I have no doubt Ashley will be talking about that and more. Ashley, thanks again. All right, still much more ahead tonight here on the Hill. How about this? The war on drugs, and the video that maybe you've seen this by now. Yet another strike on a boat in ocean waters. You see that right there. And President Trump revealing today, even though we've seen two videos, there's more the ambassador to Venezuela, who worked for Donald Trump, with us on the other side of the break, why the commander-in-chief is ordering those strikes.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
That's just some of it as well. The cash clash up on the Hill today when the Hill returns. Here on the East Coast tonight, 11:30 this evening in London town, as an unprecedented visit across the pond. That'll look right there at the president, First Lady, a little while ago, arriving in the United Kingdom. It's historic because it is the first time that a sitting United States president has made 2 state visits to the UK. Kelly Meyer, live at the White House tonight with what is on tap for the first family in the coming days. Kelly?
Yeah, hey there, Blake. A rare second state visit for President Donald Trump, and he's gearing up for a royal welcome from Windsor tomorrow. The president, no stranger to the royals, he spoke fondly of the Queen and now the King, who invited him to this visit.
Well, my relationship is very good with the UK, and Charles, as you know, who's now King, is my friend. And it's the first time this has ever happened where somebody was honored twice, so it's a great honor. Basically, I'm there also on trade. They want to see if they can refine the trade deal a little bit.
Some business on the agenda as the president talks tweaking the trade deal, but there will be plenty of pomp and circumstance. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump traveling by royal carriage along with King Charles, Queen Camilla, and Prince William and Princess Kate tomorrow. They'll be escorted by 3 different military bands. There will also be flyovers by British and American fighter jets, ending with a state banquet at the castle. There will also be protesters in both Windsor and in London. President Trump had a similar reception during his first state visit. Blake?
I was there for it in London. What I remember, Kelly, the streets were packed. It was quite the scene, and here it is, I guess, round 2. Our Kelly Meyer live tonight at the White House. Kelly, thank you. Earlier today, before heading to the UK, you saw some of the comments there that the president made. He also posted this video to his social media yesterday showing a U.S. strike destroying another alleged drug trafficking boat from Venezuela in the Caribbean. Now, it is the second time that the commander-in-chief has posted a video like this, but the president says they aren't the only boats he's taken out.
We knocked off actually 3 boats, not 2, but you saw 2.
All right, so there you have it. With us back once again here on the Hill, the former ambassador to Venezuela in both the first Trump and the Biden administration, Jimmy Story, back with us tonight here on the Hill. Ambassador, so thanks for being back with us. The president put out this second video yesterday, so you have 3 boats that have been struck, 2 videos, and I think 1 message here, which is if you send these boats out, it's not ending in handcuffs, it's ending in ammunition. Where are we tonight?
Well, certainly this is a message, Blake, and thank you again for having me on. It's a message to the drug trafficking organizations. It's a message more broadly to the region that we're changing how we're going about this particular fight. But what I can tell you, having worked on these issues as head of counter-narcotics in Colombia and also for the Western Hemisphere, is that the drug trafficking organizations are very clever and will begin to adjust quickly. So we may see fewer of these go fast, they're called, out in the middle of the Caribbean, and you'll see the routes, the tactics and techniques and procedures, the TTPs, change for these DTOs, these drug trafficking organizations.
Like how so? If you can't go by sea, I take it there's really only other 2 options, which would be by land or by air.
We have container ships. You can break these packages down into smaller containers and or smaller packages and run up along the coast. You can bounce all the way up Central America from Colombia. There's certainly flights, and most of the flights drug flights originate south of Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela. They go up and hook around Colombian airspace and land in the Madre de Dios area of Honduras. They can still be there. My question right now is, how is this going to have an impact on the intelligence we're getting from places such as Colombia. President Petro has already stated that he doesn't want to work with the U.S. military. They were decertified last night as well. There are big impacts here on our ability to gather intelligence moving forward.
Here was more of what the president had to say today. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
President Maduro in Venezuela says that you're getting ready to invade his country. What is his message to him?
Well, I would say this right away. Stop sending Tren de Aragua into the United States. Stop sending drugs into the United States.
Ambassador, we know that the president is serious about this issue. He's talked about it time and time and time again. What's different now, obviously, is the videos that we've seen, quite frankly, and the tactics to try to stop this. Is this, given all that, given how we know the president views this issue, is this purely about stopping the flow of drugs, which he believes and is a national security issue and is deadly for Americans? Or is this about something else as well with Maduro and possible regime change?
Well, first, we should all take the role of narcotics in the United States seriously. We're talking about a 747 crashing every single day, people dying of this. And how we've operated in the past by judicializing these cases have proven somewhat successful, especially going after the source, going after cocaine as it's being produced inside of Colombia. Now, the question vis-a-vis Venezuela is an interesting one. This is not enough. There are not enough military assets to actually have an invasion at this point in time. They could have a military strike against Maduro were that deemed appropriate. Not enough for an invasion. And the question that I have and continue to have is kind of what comes after Maduro. I think all of us would like to see Maduro gone. The Venezuelan people voted overwhelmingly him out of office. We have 9 million Venezuelans across the region who have voted with their feet that they prefer elsewhere than Maduro. Part of the calculus here is, okay, once Maduro and those around him are out of the picture, how are we going to deal with a Venezuela that is even more chaotic than it currently is?
We'll leave it there. Jimmy Story was with us when the president released that first video, with us tonight after the second one, and the president saying that there's a third one we just haven't seen yet. Former ambassador to Venezuela. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Blake.
All right. Still to come tonight here on the Hill. That building there behind me. The FBI Director Kash Patel sitting down, testifying with all the issues that is before the agency, and part of this happened.
You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution.
What else happened when Kash Patel sat down? The cash clash, I guess you could call it, and why they went after the FBI director when the Hill returns.
Bill O'Reilly on Cuomo.
So I'm going to save you from yourself once again.
America's favorite sparring duo with TV's liveliest, most honest debate. Tomorrow at 8, 7 Central. Only on NewsNation.
It's on fire.
Hill on NewsNation, 642 tonight. Around the corner earlier today, the FBI Director Kash Patel versus several Democratic senators. And in another battle that has shaped up, parts of the right upset with the Attorney General Pam Bondi. But let's start inside the Capitol, where Patel would go head-to-head with Democratic Senators Adam Schiff and Cory Booker over his handling of the Charlie Kirk investigation, firings at the FBI, and the Epstein case.
We have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best. You are an embarrassment.
You can try all
to the
you
division
want
in this country.
to not take responsibility for what you have said.
Time.
Sir, you're
your
making
time
a mockery
is over.
of this.
And that was just some of it. Pam Bondi, by the way, speaking of Bondi, as I mentioned earlier, she is now the Attorney General, backtracking from comments that she made on a recent podcast in which she seemed to suggest that the administration would be on the hunt for those voicing, as she put it, hate speech which did not sit well with advocates of free speech. But her original approach seemingly did not sit well with many on the right, including Congresswoman Nancy Mace.
You're a teacher and you're celebrating murder, I'm going to have you fired in the state of South Carolina. You're a doctor, you're in a medical facility where you're making life and death healthcare decisions for people in South Carolina, I'm going to make sure you get fired.
Full panel here with me now. Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor. Annalise Keller is a Republican strategist. Bill McGinley, former cabinet secretary in the first Trump administration, and hanging out with us, number one there in cyberspace, number one in our hearts, Chris Hahn, NewsNation political contributor as well. Hahn, hang around with me here for a moment. Back in studio with me. Let's start with Kash Patel here. There had been some angst, Bill, on the right about the early days of the Kirk investigation as to how that was handled. I kind of scoffed a little bit today when Senator Booker said, you're probably getting fired soon. I don't know that Senator Booker has the pulse of the conservative party.
Probably helped him.
Yeah, maybe helped him. I don't know. But what did you make of sort of what we saw up there with Kash Patel today?
I'm proud of what he did. I mean, I think the Democratic senators tried to lay a trap and sandbag him today to try and create headlines. He returned fire. And that's what the president likes. The president likes a fighter. If you look at how things are going out in Utah, the FBI is doing an excellent job. If you look at how things are going in the streets of Washington, D.C., the FBI and the other federal agencies, including the National Guard, are doing a great job.
There has been some pushback, though, about what the FBI and what Patel specifically had said in the early hours of the Kirk investigation.
Right. Well, some of that is fog of war. But he quickly course-corrected, and we saw today with the reading of the criminal information, there was a lot of great investigative work there. It sounds like they've built a solid case. The investigation continues to see if there are any other individuals who are involved, and I think a lot of that credit goes to the FBI because they're willing to work with their state and local partners to put an end to violent crime. I think Kash Patel's doing an excellent job at the FBI.
Yeah, but that's not the question that was presented. The issue is, does he get on social media, make a political statement, we got the guy, he's been arrested within an hour of the individual being brought in to be interviewed. He was a suspect. There were two suspects, and Kash Patel, in some, quite frankly, amateurish. I'm a former prosecutor. You would never do that until you've got the DNA results, you've cross-referenced, you've interviewed people, and then you're ready to charge that individual. That's when you go out and say, we've arrested a suspect or we've arrested the bad actor. That didn't happen here because his consciousness is political and rooted in social media as an influencer, not a leader of the FBI.
And I do think he did course correct, and I think he sort of
I
has said, that. Agree, fog of war. But I think you were right on when you said earlier that some of this helps him. I absolutely think it does. I think when some of the admin folks are, maybe there's some rumbling that there's some challenges there, and then these types of attacks from Democrats, we saw it with Signalgate, it really does seem to harden the right and harden Trump into wanting to go back and stand up for people like Kash Patel.
Han, did we get anything out of this today? No, right? I mean, all that's theater.
Well, here's the thing. He's playing to an audience of one, but you know who's not? Susan Collins in Maine. Other Republican senators who have to stand for election next year. House members who may be in a swing district. The independent voters don't like this. They don't like this kind of animus. The Senate is supposed to be the cooling saucer of the Republic, and you're supposed to respect the decorum. And ever since Trump's first term, where he learned with Kavanaugh that you got to go in there and throw bombs, we've seen all of his cabinet members do that. Kash Patel did that today. I find it ridiculous. But you know what? I think a lot of independent and moderate voters will as well. And it will go towards whoever it's going to help whatever Democrat is running in those swing districts.
All right. So Kash Patel did not start the verbal fight in that hearing with Booker and Schiff. They did. He fought back.
On the other side, Pam Bondi, though, she did say this the other day, and there's been some pushback. Roll it.
There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society. We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech.
She's since said hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment, Annalise.
Yeah, I think you have to be really clear when you're talking about these, whether you're talking about free speech, hate speech, or violence. It's a completely, I think, within her ability to go after these groups that are fomenting violence or acting violently, threatening people. Those are violent actions, but you need to be very clear with this distinction. I think Charlie Kirk himself wanted to fight speech with more speech.
Here, May 2nd, a post. Hate speech does not exist legally in America. This was Charlie Kirk. Legally in America, there's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. That's the post that's getting pointed to.
Yeah, but he's wrong about that, though. Hate speech is protected. We may not like it. We got to live with the good and bad of the First Amendment. Hate speech with hateful actions is illegal, and you can't go over after liberal groups without going over conservative white nationalist groups like the Boogaloo Boys and the Proud Boys and the Ku Klux Klan and others. You got to go after all of them. This president and I think his administrative officials have said we're going to target liberal groups and go find their money. We'll do it for the other side too. They said that.
But hold on. You look at what Senators Grassley and Johnson released today. It was a whole laundry list of MAGA and Republican organizations that the FBI was going after in the Biden administration. So the Democratic protestations ring a little hollow if you're going to talk about whether or not you can go after political enemies.
Neither should be targeted,
the entire
wrongfully
Biden
targeted.
Law enforcement at the federal side
should be targeted
was
both. Neither should be targeted
on
illegally.
Republican and MAGA organizations. They were investigating them. And you know, as a defense attorney and as a former prosecutor, the process is the penalty here. You drain money, you drain resources, you drain time, and you impact the individuals who are under investigation. This was done to suppress political dissent.
I'll go to
charge
Han.
both of them. Do it equally.
Han, I hear you out there.
Here is the thing. It is very easy to defend speech when you agree with it. It is very hard to defend it when you despise it. And this administration is finding that out. There is hate speech from the far right, and there is hate speech from the far left. And any administration that targets their political opponents is violating the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and the principles by which this country was founded upon. I knew Charlie Kirk. I debated him many, many times in my career. I hate to see what happen to him. I despise people who are celebrating it, but they are protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Right.
All right.
How about attack ideas versus each other? At the hearing today, you saw a lot of personal attacks going both ways. How about us attack and debate ideas and not make it personal?
Let me leave you with this. Why do you think Pam Bondi felt the need to come back out and put out that statement that she...
I think it's a response to what they were seeing online. A lot of people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, but also a lot online where people were making threats. And I think she did, when she came out and cleaned it up, I think it's what her original intent was, which is we're going to be looking at those threats against everybody in all the political spectrums of this country. We're not going to allow the political violence to spiral.
I got to leave it there. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Han, out there in cyberspace with us. Appreciate it, brother. Talk soon. All right. Other side of the break. What does President Trump's Department of War have in common with the New York Yankees? Plus a look at what's trending when The Hill returns. Trying to catch up on today's top news. Here's what's trending right now on thehill.com. Among the many storylines in the Charlie Kirk assassination, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio says visa revocations are underway for those who celebrated his murder. Down in the state of Georgia, this one you knew it was probably coming. The top court there discards Fani Willis's final bid to prosecute President Trump. And then a legend, Robert Redford, the Academy Award winner, dead today at the age of 89 years old. To check out those stories, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com. By the way, you see that QR code there on your screen? Scan that. That takes you to all the newsletters for The Hill. I write in the morning report. You can catch me there tomorrow morning. All right, time for my take now. You might remember President Trump taking in the New York Yankees game last week on the anniversary of September 11th. The native New Yorker, lifelong Yankees fan, even made time to visit the team in the dugout before the game. But the Trump administration and the Yankees front office seemingly moving in different directions. In another regard, back in February, the Yankees, steeped in tradition, decided to drop one of its known and unique rules: no facial hair They now allow it. The policy was originally adopted by the late owner George Steinbrenner as an homage to his military background, which brings me to this headline. The U.S. military now enforcing new grooming and appearance standards. The Secretary, Pete Hegseth, issuing a memo reading in part, quote, "The grooming standard for the U.S. military is to be clean, shaven, and neat in presentation for a proper military appearance. Soldiers obliged to comply within 30 days. Now, I'm not here to argue for one policy or the other. By now, I hope you know that I merely call balls and strikes. But this much is known. There is now a new play for the United States military, not just a new name in the recent weeks, the Department of War, but also the expectation for a new look. We end tonight by thanking those who serve in whichever branch they might be in. I might add, though, just don't expect this Orioles fan to root on those Yankees.